Ethan never thought life would bring him to this point. He had always been an ordinary young man, born on Earth, raised in a small town where people rarely saw anything beyond their own borders. But when the Intergalactic Cultural Exchange Program opened its doors to humans, Ethan's curiosity won over his fear. He signed his name not knowing that this decision would change his entire life. The idea sounded simple at first. Humans would live with members of other species to learn about their ways, share knowledge, and build bridges between worlds. For Ethan, who had always dreamed of stars and faraway places, this was a chance too good to refuse. Yet, he never expected to share his living space with someone who wasn't even human. When the assignment letter came, it read, "You will be paired with Kayla of Taurus 4. At the time, the name meant nothing to him. Taurus 4 was just another dot on the galactic map, another strange world spinning around another unfamiliar sun. He imagined his new roommate would be tall, scaly, or maybe insect-like. The thought made him nervous, even a little sick. But he told himself he had to be brave. The day she arrived, Ethan stood stiffly in their shared dormitory, clutching the strap of his bag as though it would protect him. The door slid open with a soft hiss and Kayla stepped inside. She was nothing like what he expected. Her skin shimmered like polished silver under the light, as if liquid metal flowed gently across her body. Her hair was long and dark, falling over her shoulders with an almost human softness, but every strand seemed to catch the light differently, like threads of glass. And then there were her eyes, bright glowing blue, so deep that staring into them made Ethan feel both small and seen at the same time. She moved with grace, her tall frame bending politely as she stepped into the room. Her hands were long, fingers elegant, almost too delicate for this world. Ethan's fear wavered the moment she spoke. "Greetings," she said softly. Her voice carried a rhythm like waves brushing against the shore, calm and steady. Ethan swallowed his nerves. Hi, I'm Ethan," she inclined her head. "Kayla." For a moment, silence filled the air. Ethan didn't know what to say. She looked both fragile and powerful, and he couldn't tell if she was more alien or more human. He only knew she was nothing like what he imagined, and far more than he was prepared for. The first days were awkward. They shared the same small dormitory, each trying to give the other space. Kayla was quiet, almost shy, though her eyes seemed to study everything around her with great curiosity. She touched the fabric of his blanket as if it were a treasure, tilted her head at the flicker of his computer screen, and asked simple questions in her melodic voice. Ethan tried to answer patiently, though sometimes he stumbled. But over time, something changed. She began to adapt to human ways. She ate meals with him, though her portion was always small. She watched his favorite movies, tilting her head in confusion at first, but sometimes smiling at the jokes. That smile, it was rare, but when it came, it was like music. It was soft, bright, and it made Ethan's chest tighten in ways he didn't fully understand. At night, when both of them sat awake working on their studies, Kayla often asked him questions. Why do humans paint the sky in pictures when they already have the real stars? Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. Because sometimes the stars in our hearts are brighter than the ones above. She didn't answer, but her glowing eyes lingered on him a moment longer than usual. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan grew used to her presence. He no longer flinched when she moved silently behind him. He no longer stared too long at her alien features, though sometimes, when she wasn't looking, he caught himself admiring the way her silver skin reflected light, the way her fingers moved with elegance, or the way her voice seemed to calm the air itself. Life with Kayla became normal, almost too normal. Ethan thought this was how it would always be, peaceful, simple, almost boring at times. He never thought their lives could shift so suddenly. But that calm was only the beginning. One evening, as the twin moons of the colony world rose outside their window, Kayla sat by the balcony, her eyes distant. Ethan noticed the way her body tensed, the way her breath came unevenly. He thought she was homesick, perhaps remembering her world. He wanted to comfort her, but something in her gaze made him hesitate. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She turned her head slowly, her glowing eyes meeting his. There was something there he hadn't seen before. Something sharp. Something urgent. "Yes," she whispered, though her voice trembled. But Ethan knew, in that moment, that their peaceful days were slipping away. Something was coming. something he didn't understand, and soon he would realize just how unprepared he truly was. For many days, Ethan thought things were going well. Kayla adjusted to human life in her quiet, graceful way, and he began to think of her not as an alien, but as a roommate, even a friend. She still spoke softly, still watched the stars with longing eyes, but nothing seemed unusual. Then one evening, everything changed. Ethan was returning from a long study session, his arms full of books. As he pushed open the dormitory door, he froze. Kayla stood in the middle of the room, her tall figure trembling. Her silver skin, normally smooth and calm, shimmered as if fire burned underneath it. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever before, so bright that it almost hurt to look at them. "Kayla?" Ethan asked carefully, his voice breaking the silence. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she paced the floor like a restless animal. Her hands flexed, long fingers curling and uncurling as though she was trying to hold back something inside her. The calm grace she always carried was gone, replaced by raw unease. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and strained. "It has started." Ethan frowned. "What has started?" Her glowing eyes flicked toward him, then away again, filled with shame. "My season, my cycle. You would call it mating season?" The words hit Ethan like a stone. He blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Mating season?" he repeated awkwardly. Kayla turned her back to him, her shoulders shaking. "On Terrace 4, our bodies are bound to the rhythm of our world. When the moons align, our blood burns. We cannot stop it. We must find a bond or we suffer." Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentler now. "Suffer, what do you mean?" She wrapped her long arms around herself as though trying to hold in the storm raging inside. "The fever grows. The body weakens. The mind shatters. Without bond, some do not survive." The air grew heavy around them. Ethan's heart pounded. He had no idea what to say. This wasn't something covered in the program handbook. He had signed up to share culture, to learn about alien foods and stories, not to be trapped in a situation where his roommate's very life was on the line. Kayla's glowing eyes turned back to him, filled with both fear and longing. "I did not want you to see me like this. I thought perhaps I could endure. But it has come too soon, too strong." Her body trembled again, her skin flashing brighter, almost painful to watch. She clutched the edge of the desk as if to keep herself from falling. Ethan rushed forward without thinking, steadying her by the arm. The heat of her skin shocked him, like touching metal left in the sun. She gasped, her body stiffening at his touch, but she didn't pull away. "Kayla," Ethan said firmly, trying to keep his voice steady. "What do you need me to do?" She shook her head, despair clouding her face. "You cannot help. You are human. Your kind is not meant for this. If I stay near you, I may lose control. If I stay alone, I may break." The helplessness in her voice pierced him. She had always been so calm, so controlled, so careful with her words. Seeing her unravel like this was painful. Ethan wanted to help, but fear tugged at him too. What if she hurt him by accident? What if getting involved crossed a line he couldn't return from? The next few days blurred into chaos. Kayla's condition grew worse. She barely slept, her body trembling through the nights. Ethan often woke to the sound of her pacing the room, whispering words in her own language, her voice raw and desperate. Sometimes she pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the window, her glowing eyes watching the moons rise and fall. Other times she curled in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, trembling so violently that Ethan thought she might shatter like fragile glass. He tried everything. He offered her water, tried adjusting the room temperature, even contacted the exchange program supervisors. But messages traveled slowly between planets. No one came. No one answered quickly enough. They were alone. At moments, Kayla pushed him away. "Stay back," she warned, her voice breaking. "Your presence makes it worse. My instincts, they reach for you. It is not safe." But other times she clung to him desperately, her long fingers gripping his arm, her glowing eyes begging for something she could not put into words. Ethan's heart twisted each time. He had never seen anyone, human or alien, so torn between fear and need. Ethan began to realize something terrifying. Her mating season wasn't just about desire or instinct. It was about survival. She wasn't exaggerating. If she failed to bond with someone, the fever could destroy her. One night, as he sat awake watching her restless form pace the room, the truth sank deeper. Kayla wasn't just an alien. She was his friend. Someone who trusted him. Someone who had laughed at his clumsy jokes. Someone who had sat quietly beside him under the stars. And now she was fighting for her life. His chest ached with helplessness. He wanted to protect her, but he didn't know how. He wasn't her kind. He wasn't supposed to be part of this. Yet every time he saw her glowing eyes filled with pain, he felt something inside him breaking. That night, when she finally collapsed into the chair, trembling and exhausted, Ethan knelt beside her. He didn't touch her this time, afraid of hurting her or crossing some unseen line. Instead, he just whispered softly, "You're not alone, Kayla. I'll stay with you. Whatever happens, I'm not leaving." Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his, shimmering with tears he had never seen before. She didn't answer, but her expression said everything. For the first time since this nightmare began, Kayla closed her eyes and allowed herself to rest, just for a few moments, with Ethan sitting quietly beside her. And in those fragile moments of silence, Ethan realized something that made his heart pound even harder. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. This was about him too. Because somewhere in the middle of shared meals, quiet nights, and glowing eyes, Kayla had become more than just his alien roommate. She had become someone he could not bear to lose. The next days were like living inside a storm. Ethan had never seen anything like it. Kayla, who once moved with calm grace, now looked like a flame burning out of control. Her silver skin glowed too brightly, her body trembling from waves of fever that came and went without warning. At night, she tossed and turned, her voice sometimes breaking into strange words from her language, words that sounded sharp, desperate, almost like cries. Ethan would sit up, wide awake, watching her fight through the pain. He wanted to help, but he never knew how. Sometimes she pushed him away. "Stay back," she would say through clenched teeth, her glowing eyes wild. "If I lose myself, I may hurt you." And yet, only hours later, she would reach for him. Her long fingers gripped his wrist, her trembling voice whispering, "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me." Ethan stayed. Always. He couldn't bring himself to walk away, no matter how much fear pulled at him. Watching Kayla's suffering was worse than anything else. The fever grew stronger. Her skin radiated heat so fierce that even the air around her seemed heavy. Once, when Ethan brushed his hand against hers to steady her, he pulled back with a sharp gasp. The touch was like holding metal heated in fire. Still, Kayla's trembling body leaned into him, seeking comfort she couldn't control. He realized something then. Her struggle wasn't just physical. It was inside her mind too. Her species was bound by this cycle, and fighting against it was like trying to hold back the tide. Every moment she resisted, her body grew weaker, her strength fading like a candle burning down to nothing. Ethan tried everything he could think of. He brought her cold water. He adjusted the room temperature lower, then higher, searching for anything that might ease her pain. He even pulled her chair to the window so the night air might cool her fever, but nothing lasted. Late one night, after hours of pacing, Kayla collapsed onto the floor, her long limbs trembling. Ethan rushed to her side, lifting her carefully. Her glowing eyes flickered open, clouded with exhaustion. "I cannot endure this much longer," she whispered. Her voice was broken, small, nothing like the calm tone he had first known. Ethan's throat tightened. "Don't say that. You're strong, Kayla. You'll get through this." Her gaze searched his face, filled with a sadness that cut through him. "No, you don't understand. My kind. We do not survive alone in this season. Without a bond, my body will collapse. It is not weakness. It is the way of Terrace blood." Her words hit Ethan harder than he expected. He had thought she was just suffering, waiting for the season to pass. But now he understood. This wasn't temporary discomfort. This was a fight for her life. The days blurred into one another. Ethan stopped going to his study groups. He barely ate, too worried about leaving Kayla alone. Every sound she made pulled his attention. Every flicker of her glowing skin made his chest ache. He tried contacting the exchange supervisors again, his fingers trembling over the communicator. But the reply came slowly, a delayed message. "Medical team en route. Arrival 18 days, 18 days. Ethan read the words again and again, his heart sinking deeper each time. Kayla didn't have 18 days. She barely looked like she had 18 hours. When he told her, Kayla closed her eyes, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Too long," she whispered. Ethan felt powerless. For the first time in his life, no book, no study, no human tool could help him. All he had were his hands, his voice, and his stubborn will to stay by her side. The nights became the hardest. The fever seemed worse under the moons. Kayla would pace endlessly, her glowing eyes sharp, her breath ragged. At times, she pressed her hands against the wall as though trying to hold herself steady. Ethan stayed awake with her, even when his body begged for rest. He spoke softly, telling her stories from Earth, about the rivers of his hometown, about the sound of rain on rooftops, about simple things she had never seen. He thought it was foolish, but sometimes she listened, her trembling easing for a few moments as she imagined the world through his words. But then the fever always returned, stronger than before. One night, as she clung to the edge of the bed, her body shaking, she whispered, "Ethan, I don't want to die." The words shattered him. He knelt beside her, taking her burning hand despite the heat. "You're not going to die. I won't let you. Do you hear me?" Her eyes met his, glowing bright but filled with fear. "You cannot stop what I am. I am Taryn. This is my fate." Ethan shook his head, his voice trembling but firm. "I don't care about fate. You're not alone. Not anymore." For a long moment, Kayla just stared at him, her glowing eyes searching his face as if she was trying to decide whether to believe him. Then slowly she leaned against him, her forehead resting on his shoulder. Her heat burned through his shirt, but Ethan didn't move. He held her carefully, feeling her trembling body relax just slightly. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep at all. He sat awake with Kayla leaning against him, her breathing uneven, her fever still raging. He thought about everything she had told him, the bond her species needed, the danger of being near her, the risk she carried. Fear tried to crawl into his mind. What if she lost control? What if helping her meant losing himself? But another thought pushed the fear away. If he walked away, if he left her alone, Kayla would die. And Ethan knew deep in his heart he couldn't let that happen. She wasn't just his alien roommate anymore. She was Kayla, the one who had laughed softly at his jokes, the one who asked questions about human art, the one who stared at the stars with the same wonder he carried in his own heart. Somewhere in the middle of sleepless nights and desperate whispers, she had become precious to him. And Ethan realized something dangerous, something powerful. He was willing to fight fate itself if that's what it took to save her. Ethan felt like the walls of the dormitory were closing in on him. Each day that passed only made Kayla's suffering worse, and each hour he spent by her side pushed him deeper into a decision he didn't know how to make. He knew the rules. The exchange program handbook had repeated them again and again. No intimate contact. No emotional entanglements. Respect cultural distance. But the handbook had never prepared him for this. It had never described what to do if your alien roommate began dying in front of your eyes. It had never told him how to choose between rules written on paper and the life of someone who had become your closest friend. Ethan watched Kayla closely that evening. She sat by the balcony window, her back pressed against the glass. Her silver skin glowed faintly, though weaker than before. Her long fingers trembled as they rested on her knees. She looked fragile, far too fragile for someone who had once carried herself like a figure of strength and dignity. Her voice broke the silence. "Ethan, come closer." He stepped toward her without hesitation. Her glowing eyes lifted to meet his. This time, there was no barrier between them, no attempt to hide her suffering. For the first time, she looked open, raw, vulnerable. "I cannot fight this alone," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I thought I could. I wanted to protect you from what I am, but the fever grows. It tears at my body. My mind slips away from me." She paused, her breath uneven. "Please, just stay near me. Do not leave." The plea went straight to Ethan's heart. His chest tightened, and for a moment he couldn't speak. He had never seen Kayla like this, so stripped of her usual calm. She wasn't just asking for comfort. She was asking for his choice, his presence, his courage. Ethan knelt in front of her. "I'm here," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Her trembling hand reached toward him, hesitated, then finally rested against his arm. The heat of her touch made him flinch, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he covered her hand with his own, holding it firmly. Kayla closed her eyes, a faint sound escaping her lips. Half sigh, half sob. "Your presence. It eases the fire. Just a little. Enough to breathe." Ethan's thoughts raced. If his closeness helped her, maybe there was more he could do. But the fear of the unknown gnawed at him. What if helping her meant breaking a line that could never be crossed back? What if he wasn't strong enough? Still, as he looked at her pale, glowing face, he knew there was no choice left. He couldn't let her wither away. That night he sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching. He told her stories again about the rivers on Earth, about the way children laughed in summer, about his mother's cooking, about small things that sounded meaningless, but made Kayla listen with her glowing eyes fixed on him. She leaned closer as the hours passed. Her breathing steadied, though her skin still burned. At one point her head rested against his shoulder. Ethan froze, but he didn't move away. Her weight was light, almost fragile, and her warmth, though too hot, carried a strange comfort. As dawn painted the horizon, Kayla whispered, "Why do you care so much? You could run. You could wait for your people to come. But you stay." Ethan looked at her, the words spilling from him before he could stop them. "Because it's you, Kayla. Not just anyone. You." Her eyes widened slightly, shimmering with a light that wasn't only from the fever. She didn't reply, but her hand gripped his tighter, and for the first time in days, Ethan saw something different in her gaze. Hope. The following day was the hardest yet. Kayla's fever surged, and she nearly collapsed while standing. Ethan caught her in his arms, holding her trembling body against his chest. She buried her face against him, her voice muffled but filled with desperation. "If you open yourself to me," she whispered, "if you allow the bond, I can survive." The words froze him in place. The bond. He had heard her mention it before, but never this clearly. This was what she truly needed. "What does it mean?" Ethan asked quietly. Her glowing eyes lifted to his, soft but filled with intensity. "It is not flesh alone. It is spirit. It is heart. When two connect, the fever calms. The body remembers it is not alone." She swallowed, her voice breaking. "But it must be real. If you do not mean it, it will shatter me faster." Ethan's heart pounded. The bond was more than closeness. It was trust. It was a promise that could not be broken. The weight of the choice pressed on him. If he bonded with her, everything would change. The program, his future, his life, none of it would ever be the same. But if he refused, Kayla would die. He looked at her trembling form, her silver skin glowing faintly, her eyes shimmering with both fear and hope. And in that moment, Ethan knew rules didn't matter anymore. The exchange program didn't matter. What mattered was the living, breathing person in front of him, the one who had become more than just his alien roommate. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "I don't care about the risks. I don't care about the rules. I'm not going to let you die, Kayla. If bonding is what you need, then I'm with you." Her eyes widened, tears shimmering in their glow. For a long moment she just stared at him. Her breath caught in her throat. Then slowly her trembling eased. "You would choose this?" she whispered, her voice breaking with both disbelief and relief. Ethan nodded firmly. "I choose you." Kayla's lips trembled into the faintest smile, a fragile, beautiful smile that seemed to light the whole room. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his, her heat burning but her presence calming. In that silent, powerful moment, Ethan realized the truth. This was no longer about rules or survival. It was about love, the quiet kind, the unexpected kind, the kind that grew between two souls who were never meant to meet, yet couldn't let go of each other. The night was heavy with silence. Outside their window, the twin moons cast pale light across the floor, washing the room in silver glow. Inside, Kayla sat trembling, her glowing eyes fixed on Ethan as if he were the only thing holding her to this world. Ethan's chest rose and fell quickly. His hands were clammy, his heart racing, but his decision was made. There was no turning back. He could see it in her face. If he hesitated now, if he let fear control him, Kayla would not last much longer. She spoke first, her voice so soft he almost didn't hear. "The bond is not a game, Ethan. It will join us. It will tie us in ways even your people may not understand." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "I don't care. I want you to live. I want you to be safe." Her long fingers curled against her knees. "If you give me only half of yourself, if you hesitate inside, it will destroy me faster. You must mean it. You must open your heart to me." He swallowed hard. Fear whispered in his mind. Fear of the unknown, of crossing a line he could never uncross. But stronger than fear was the image of Kayla's smile, the rare sound of her laugh, the quiet nights spent together under the stars. Stronger than fear was the thought of losing her forever. So he leaned closer, his voice firm but gentle. "Then I'll give you everything. I'm not afraid." For the first time in days, Kayla's lips curved into a faint smile. It was small, fragile, but it reached her glowing eyes. The bond began not with touch but with closeness. Kayla reached out, her trembling hand hovering in the air until Ethan placed his own over it. The heat from her skin was almost unbearable, but he didn't pull away. Their fingers interlocked, human and alien, fragile and strong. Kayla closed her eyes. "Breathe with me," she whispered. Ethan obeyed, his breath shaky at first, then steadier as he matched her rhythm. Slowly, he felt the air between them shift, as though something unseen was stirring. Then it happened. A current passed through him, sharp and sudden, like lightning racing under his skin. His breath caught and his heart skipped. In that instant, he wasn't just holding Kayla's hand, he was holding her pain, her fear, her loneliness. Images flashed in his mind, memories that weren't his. He saw vast silver plains under twin suns, a sky filled with moons, oceans that glowed with light. He felt the echo of Kayla's childhood, the sound of voices speaking in her language, the crushing weight of isolation when the fever began. He felt her terror of dying far from home. Ethan gasped, but he didn't let go. He gripped her hand tighter, grounding himself as he whispered, "You're not alone." "I'm here." Kayla shuddered, her glowing eyes opening wide. Tears shimmered against her silver skin. "I feel you. You're inside my mind. Your heart." "It is warm, strong. You mean it." "Yes," Ethan said firmly. His chest ached from the flood of emotions, but he embraced them. "I mean it. I won't let you go." The fever's grip on her body seemed to weaken as their bond deepened. Her trembling slowed, her breathing steadied. The glow of her skin softened, no longer a burning flame but a gentle light. Ethan felt it too. The fire inside her was no longer wild, it was shared. It coursed through him, but instead of burning, it became warmth, like holding sunlight in his chest. Kayla leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. Their breaths mingled, their hands locked. Her voice was almost a sob. "You saved me. Ethan, you truly saved me." He closed his eyes, his own voice breaking. "I just couldn't lose you." For a long while, they stayed like that. Two beings from different worlds sitting in silence, hearts tied by something neither of them fully understood. When dawn broke, Kayla stirred. She pulled back slightly, her glowing eyes calmer, brighter, but no longer clouded with pain. Her silver skin shimmered gently in the morning light. "The fever has passed," she whispered. "The bond holds. I can breathe again." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Relief washed over him so strongly that his eyes stung with tears. He smiled weakly. "Good, that's all I wanted." Kayla studied him for a long moment, her expression soft. Then she reached out and touched his cheek, her long fingers gentle against his skin. "You gave me your strength when I had none. You gave me your heart when I was falling apart. My people will never understand this, but I do. Ethan, I am alive because of you." His chest tightened. He didn't know what to say. Words felt too small for the storm of emotions inside him, so he simply nodded, covering her hand with his own. That day, the dormitory felt different. The air was lighter, quieter, as though the storm had finally passed. Kayla moved more steadily, her body no longer trembling. She ate with him, smiled faintly at his clumsy jokes, and even sat beside him without the restless pacing that had haunted her nights. But something between them had changed forever. Ethan felt it in every glance, every touch, every silence they shared. They were no longer just roommates. The bond had tied them together in ways deeper than words. And though he didn't fully understand what their future would bring, Ethan knew one thing with certainty. He would never see Kayla as just an alien again. She was Kayla. His Kayla. That evening, as the stars appeared, Kayla sat by the balcony again, but this time, she wasn't trembling. She gazed at the sky with quiet peace. Ethan joined her, sitting shoulder to shoulder. "Do you regret it?" she asked suddenly, her voice soft but serious. "Choosing me, breaking your rules, tying yourself to me?" Ethan thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No, not even for a second." Kayla turned to him, her glowing eyes shimmering. And for the first time since he met her, she smiled fully, a radiant, beautiful smile that made his heart race. "Then neither do I," she whispered. And in that simple moment, beneath the vast sky, Ethan realized something powerful. He hadn't just saved her life. He had found something worth more than survival. He had found a bond that no rule, no distance, no difference could ever take away. The days that followed felt unreal to Ethan. For the first time in weeks, the dormitory was quiet in a peaceful way. Not the heavy silence of fear. The air didn't feel tense anymore. The nights were calm, and the mornings weren't filled with Kayla's pained breathing. Kayla herself looked different. She still carried the grace of her kind, her silver skin glowing faintly, but now her steps were steadier, her posture stronger. Her glowing eyes no longer flickered with pain. They shone with clarity, soft yet powerful. Ethan noticed everything. The way her voice was calmer when she spoke. The way she lingered near him instead of keeping her distance. The way she sometimes looked at him as if seeing more than just a roommate, as if she could see through him. But he also noticed the bond inside him. It was strange. It wasn't something he could touch, yet it was always there. A quiet thread connecting him to her. He could feel her emotions if he focused. Soft waves of calm, sudden sparks of worry, or gentle warmth when she looked at him, and he knew she felt him too. One evening as they sat on the balcony, Kayla finally spoke about it. "The bond is strong," she said, her voice thoughtful. "Stronger than I expected. I can sense your heart even when you are far in another room. It comforts me." Ethan leaned against the railing watching the stars. "I feel it too. It's strange but not bad, like we're never really alone anymore." Kayla turned her glowing eyes toward him. For a moment she looked vulnerable, as if afraid of his answer. "Does it frighten you? To be tied to someone not of your kind?" Ethan thought carefully. The truth was, yes, it was frightening, but not in the way she meant. It wasn't her alien nature that scared him. It was the intensity of what he felt now, the way his heart responded to her without him trying. But he didn't want her to feel burdened. "No," he said softly, "it doesn't frighten me. It feels right, like this was meant to happen." Kayla's lips curved into the smallest smile. Her eyes softened, glowing faintly in the night. "Then I am glad, because if you regretted it, the bond would break me." Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't fully understand all the rules of this connection, but he understood one thing. His choices mattered more than ever now. His feelings weren't just his own anymore, they affected her life directly, and he knew he couldn't fail her. The following day, Kayla showed him something he hadn't expected. She placed her hand gently over her chest, then over his. "Do you feel it?" she whispered. Ethan closed his eyes. At first all he felt was his own heartbeat, but then faintly he sensed another rhythm beneath it, steady and calm. Her heart, beating in sync with his. He opened his eyes, shocked. "That's you?" Kayla nodded. "Yes, our rhythms have joined. It is the sign of survival, but also the sign of trust. Among my people, it is rare to bond with anyone. To bond with an off-worlder? It is unheard of." Ethan swallowed hard. "Does that mean I've changed your life forever?" Kayla tilted her head, her silver hair catching the light. "Yes, and you have changed mine, forever." Her words struck deep. Ethan realized that nothing would ever be the same again, for either of them. But even in peace, doubt found its way into Ethan's mind. One night, lying awake in his bed, he stared at the ceiling, his thoughts heavy. What would happen when Kayla's people found out? Would they see him as an intruder, someone who broke rules he didn't even know existed? Would they punish her for bonding with a human? He turned and his gaze landed on Kayla, who was sitting quietly by the window, bathed in silver moonlight. Her glowing eyes were far away, lost in thought. "Kayla," he said softly. She turned, her expression unreadable. "Yes?" Ethan hesitated. "What happens now? I mean, with us? With this bond?" Kayla was silent for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice carrying both strength and sadness. "We face what comes together. That is all we can do. But you must understand, my people will not accept this easily. Some may even call it a betrayal." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I don't care what they think. You're alive. That's what matters." Her glowing eyes softened and she whispered, "Your heart is brave, too brave, but it may cost you more than you realize." The next day something shifted again. Kayla was quieter than usual. as though carrying a weight inside her. She avoided his eyes sometimes, though the bond still hummed steady between them. Ethan could feel her emotions, conflict, sorrow, and something else he couldn't quite name. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. "Kayla," he said, catching her gaze. "Talk to me, please." She closed her eyes, breathing slowly. "The bond means I cannot hide from you, can I?" "No," Ethan said gently. "You can't, but I don't want to force you. I just want the truth." When she opened her eyes again, they shimmered with sadness. "The truth is, I am afraid. Afraid that I have tied your life to mine and now you will suffer for it. Afraid that I've been selfish in choosing survival over your freedom." Ethan stepped closer, his voice firm. "Kayla, listen to me. I chose this. I chose you. Don't ever think it was only about survival. You matter to me." Her breath caught, and for a moment her strong composure broke. She looked at him with such raw emotion that his chest ached. "You matter to me too," she whispered. "More than I ever thought possible." That night they sat together again on the balcony, watching the stars in silence. The bond between them pulsed softly, steady and calm. Ethan realized something powerful. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He wasn't just surviving alongside her. They were bound now, in ways deeper than he had words for. And though the future was uncertain, though danger might come, Ethan felt no regret. He had walked into the storm with her. Now he would face whatever came after it by her side. The days of peace did not last. Kayla's people finally arrived. Their ships came silently, hovering above the academy with silver hulls that glowed in the night sky. Students poured out to watch, whispering in awe and fear. Ethan stood at the balcony beside Kayla, his heart pounding as the alien crafts descended. Kayla's glowing eyes narrowed. "They came faster than I thought." Ethan glanced at her. "Is this good or bad?" Her silence was the answer. When the envoys entered the academy, everyone moved aside. They were tall like Kayla, silver-skinned, with robes that shimmered faintly. Their presence was overwhelming, their glowing eyes cold and unreadable. The leader stepped forward, fixing Kayla with a sharp gaze. His voice was deep and commanding. "Kayla of Nerith, you have survived your season." Kayla bowed her head. "Yes, Elder, I endured." But the Elder's gaze shifted to Ethan, his expression hardened. "And yet, you did not endure alone." Ethan felt the weight of those glowing eyes pierce through him. His stomach twisted, but he stood his ground. The Elder's voice turned sharp. "You bonded with a human? Do you even understand what you have done?" Kayla lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the tension. "I understand. I chose survival. I chose life. And I chose him." Gasps spread among the aliens. Some looked angry, others horrified. The Elder's eyes blazed. "This is forbidden. A bond between human and Nerith cannot exist. It is unnatural." Ethan clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. He wanted to shout, to defend Kayla, but before he could, Kayla stepped forward. Her voice was clear, strong, unshaken. "It exists. It saved me. Without him, I would be dead. Without me, he would not feel what he feels now. We are joined, and nothing can undo it." The Elder turned his glare on Ethan. "Human, do you even realize what this means? Your life is no longer your own. Your heart beats with hers. If she falls, you fall. If she suffers, you suffer. You have tied yourself to her destiny. Do you accept this?" Ethan's heart pounded. Everyone stared at him, waiting. Fear clawed at his chest, but when he looked at Kayla, standing proud yet vulnerable, the fear melted away. "Yes," Ethan said firmly. His voice carried through the hall. "I accept it. I chose her. I'll always choose her." The words silenced the room. Even Kayla blinked, her glowing eyes shimmering with emotion. The Elder's expression turned cold. "Then you are both bound in exile. The Nerith cannot welcome such a union. You must live outside our laws. You are no longer of us," Kayla stiffened. "Elder," but Ethan stepped forward, his voice stronger than he thought possible. "Then so be it. We don't need your approval. We don't need your laws. We just need each other." The Elder's gaze darkened, but he said no more. With a wave of his hand, the envoys turned and left, their silver robes trailing behind them. Kayla stood frozen, her body trembling slightly. Ethan moved closer, touching her arm. "Kayla, are you okay?" Her eyes met his, filled with sorrow and fire at once. "They cast me out. I have no people now." Ethan shook his head. "You have me, and I'm not going anywhere." That night, the dormitory felt both heavier and lighter. The world outside had changed, but inside something had grown stronger. Kayla sat quietly by the balcony, staring at the stars. Her glowing eyes shimmered with sadness. All my life I dreamed of proving myself to my people, of returning stronger after the season, but now I have no home to return to. Ethan sat beside her, his voice gentle. Then we'll make a new home, together. She turned toward him slowly, her silver hair catching the moonlight. Together, she whispered, as if testing the word. Their bond pulsed softly between them, steady and warm. Kayla reached out, her long,